What's going on, guys? Today I'm going to be making a knife out of a file. I have several other file knives that I've made. I really like them. They're cheap to get your hands on, the old files at least. You can sometimes find them at like flea markets and stuff like that. And they do make a pretty high quality file. Here in the beginning, I'm basically just, as you can tell, I'm cutting out the rough shape, profiling it. The thing I'm using here is the angle grinder. Be careful with this if that's what you choose to use. They can be pretty dangerous at times. But you can also just use a hacksaw, you can use files, anything of that nature. Just basically cut out the shape of the knife that you want. So the next thing that we're going to be doing is we're going to make the bevels of the knife, which is essentially just the pointy part of the knife, the cutting edge. So to do that, the easiest thing is to mark out the flat spot here. As you can see, a Sharpie works fine. You can use any kind of marker. It's basically just so that you have a surface to where you can scribe with a drill bit that's approximately the same width as the piece of steel you're using. That'll give you these two scribe lines that you'll see here in a second. Between those two is the true middle of your blade, which is where you want the two sides to kind of come to the pointy part at. Pretty much all you're going to do there is you can use a 1x30, you can use filing jigs, you can use the angle grinder with a flat disc. Actually works surprisingly well. But all you're going to do is you're going to try and file away or grind away until you get to those two grind lines, and leave just a little bit of metal there. You don't want to point it all the way. Like, you don't want to apex that edge, because we still have to quench. So you want a little bit of meat there to kind of reinforce things before we go into the quench. Here is what I believe to be one of the trickiest parts of making a knife for me personally, because I don't have a drill press. I have to use a hand drill, so you're kind of eyeballing it if you're doing it like me. Just make sure that you slowly drill, line it up more than once, and kind of just go with your gut. Typically, you can get pretty darn close to 90 degrees, but I always like to do this step before I heat treat, because even though we're not trying to harden the handle of the blade, sometimes it will happen, and maybe you're further toward the blade pin, you'll get like halfway through the hole and find out that you hardened the rest of the blade, and that is a pain in the butt. So if you're going to drill holes for the handle, always try and remember to do those first before we go into the heat treat. To quench this blade, you could use water. Sometimes that actually works really well on these file blades, but this one's kind of thin, so I chose to go with vanilla oil instead, because it's a little bit less aggressive. It's not going to cool it off quite as fast, and you're significantly less likely to have cracks or warps when you do that. But essentially what you're going for is you want that orangish kind of a color, and then just quench it right in. From that orange color, maybe let it soak a little bit, and then quench it in your oil, whatever. And after that, you're going to check it with a funnel. Basically what we're looking for whenever you're checking it with a funnel is you just want it to skate across, and it might sound weird until you actually do it once or twice, and then you kind of get what everybody says as far as like you'll hear it, you'll feel it, and then from there, once you can confirm that you have a hardened blade, be careful with it. You don't want to drop it because it's super hard. Kind of think of it like glass at this point. If you drop it on concrete, you got a good chance it's going to break. And then from there, we don't want to lollygag too much. We want to get it in our home oven. Whenever I'm doing a file, I always do 400 degrees for 1 hour. I find that leaves a little bit more of the hardness in it, and kind of err on the side of a little harder, I guess. You don't have to do that. You could do 2 cycles, but I always choose 1. Whatever it is, you're just looking for this straw color on the blade. That way you kind of can confirm that it got to that 400 degree temperature, and that'll bring it down from being so hard and brittle to more of a functioning, usable blade. So shaping these handles was a bit of a pain if you couldn't tell. I do not have a bandsaw, so I was kind of doing it the old-fashioned different way, doing it with hand tools. But I will say, while you're making these handles, always think through everything twice. That way you don't end up drilling a hole in the wrong spot, or you don't accidentally end up doing them like mirror images instead of the way it's supposed to be. Because I've done all that stuff before. Here, it's kind of a trick I used. You can do this whenever you're working any kind of woodworking with hardwood, but I just make these little cuts and then chisel away at them. Hardwoods like to split really predictably for the most part, including walnuts, so it's worked thus far. I get away with it. It saves me a lot of time grinding and stuff, but you're more than welcome to do that on your as well. Glue up is quite possibly the easiest and most common time to screw up your knife. Again, like I said, when shaping the handles, always make sure that you really think through what you're doing. Dry fit like 100 times more than you think you need to. You'd be surprised the mistakes you catch whenever you go for a dry fit. Other than that, I can only recommend lining everything up as you see. That way you can just pick it up and put it immediately where it needs to go. You don't have to finagle. And at the end, have your clamps ready, have everything ready, because the last thing you want is for epoxy to start hardening on you when you're caught with your pants down. But always, I can't stress it enough to dry fit before you go in and start epoxying things away. It's a really exciting time. You're almost done, so just take your time and finish it. In my opinion, there's no like specific one way to shape a handle. Just kind of do whatever feels natural. Hold it, shape it, sand it, hold it, repeat. Just kind of get that feeling for what feels good in your hand. And somewhere along the way, you'll probably end up a little bit unsymmetrical or not symmetrical, but that's fine. Whatever it is that feels good in your hand, if you're making a knife for you, that's really all that matters. So just get to it, a handle that you're comfortable with, something that you enjoy, and then the next best part is finally finishing her up with some boiled linseed oil is what I would recommend. I've heard people use teak. Just try to avoid varnishes and stuff like that, because if you're really using the knife, you'll likely get blisters from stuff like that. So linseed oil always leaves a nice pretty finish, and it kind of gets a patina with age. It looks pretty cool. So that's all for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Drop a comment if you saw a better way of doing anything involving the hand drill, because I hate using hand drill. But either way, stay tuned. I plan to be posting significantly more videos of this nature in the future. I also have a couple other knife build videos up on my channel, so check all that out. Like, subscribe, comment, all that good stuff, and you guys have a blessed day.